Okay, so to create the slider piece, we're going to use another box, and just so it contrasts with the other one, I'm going to change the color. And I'm going to hit F to zoom in. That's a little too far. The only thing I really need to make sure of is that this piece is wide enough. We want the thin parts to still be strong. We don't want anything to be snapping because it got too thin. So is that enough space? I'm not 100% comfortable yet. I want it to be just a little wider. That's pretty good. I don't think there's any chance of that being too thin on the side to hold together. But of course, if I do cut this out, I'm going to have two separate pieces. So how are we going to deal with that? We need to actually have a way to hold those two pieces together. So what I just did was I selected the big piece, I copied and pasted it. I'm going to change this shape into a hole, and I'm going to make the hole just a little bit bigger. So I don't want to go too far, and I have 43 by 240 here. So let's just, I'm holding the shift key. I'm looking mostly at this 45 number, so I'm up 2.5 millimeters. That's fine. So I just jumped from 43 wide to 46.5 wide. And that leaves a nice little gap in the middle so that this doesn't get stuck. All right, so I'm going to move this over to here and hit F to zoom in. I'm going to cut this out of the piece, but before I do, of course, I need a way to hold these two sides together. And so let's stretch this up, and I just want to make sure it's well centered. I guess it doesn't have to be perfectly centered if you prefer it to be larger on one side than the other, but that's pretty close. And then I'm just going to select these two shapes. Do not select this one with it, just these two shapes. Group them, and it cuts out. And now I have a thing that I could just put across here. The problem is it's not going to print correctly because I have a huge horizontal bridge right here. I can do a small bridge across things on the printer. This is way too big. So it's just when it gets to that spot, I'm just going to have spaghetti dripping down because there's nothing to build it on. Think of 3D printing like baking cookies, okay? You have to have a bottom layer before you can have a top layer. So easy solution, just flip it over. And now that's something that'll pop onto the end. But let's just take this design one step a little further and add that notch so that it won't fall off the end. And I used hearts for the other one. Yeah, it's fine. Let's keep hearts. I just have to, I'm going to hit F to zoom in and just make this a little bigger so that it fits on the end. Almost there. And I don't really want to go past the end here because I was kind of going to the maximum. Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe I will put it on the end and then I'll just shrink the whole thing a little bit because this means the whole thing is going to be longer than the printer can actually handle. But that's good. Copy and paste. And I'm using the arrow key to move it, which is kind of slow. Zoom in. That's fine. All right, so how are we going to actually cut the notch out of there, out of just the side shapes? Well, check this out. I am going to create a hole. I can do it in 30 seconds. I'm going to create a hole that is just a little wider than this. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to ungroup this shape. I'm going to select just the green parts, 1 and 2, and then I group that, and it cuts out only from the green, And now I just have to group this together, and I